Hey guys, thanks for coming back to the channel and watching another video. Today what we have is from Revell Monogram, their old Battlestar Galactica kit. And let's take a quick look in here. If I can get the box open. Now the kit itself is a very basic. Most of the hull is just two pieces. And we have a couple pieces for the landing bays, the left and right, or port and starboard. We got a couple of drum pieces. And that's about it. Looks like we get a little full card of probably a Ralph McQuarrie original artwork. Pretty cool. And some decals that are yellowing and I've seen they're better today, but it does give us some different ship names and a simple display base. As always, I rarely use those, though that is nice kind of moon textured display base. It's like we got the of course the back of the engine here. So my plan for this is to do kind of my own thing. I've been following a builder by the name of Jason Seidner on Facebook, on the Starship modeling page. He's been working on this kit, doing extensive modifications to it. I know he's changed the landing bays quite a bit and a lot of added detail. As you can see, this is pretty plain up here. Even the panel lines in here are not very clear, but he's been adding a whole lot of detail. I'm not going to be copying his work, but I'm definitely inspired to do modifications, do my own thing, add some extra detail, and come up with my own kind of paint scheme for it. Undecided about that instead of just kind of doing the white or something of that nature. So I'm just going to get into it. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I do want to light the kit, get some engine lights, maybe light the landing bays, and some fiber optics and things like that. So we'll just see where it takes us. Alright, so here's some of my work so far. I've cut away the engine area, and I just took a small drill and drilled out the area, a little series of holes around. Once I had all those holes around, took a sharp X-Acto knife, cut it out, then took some files and sanding strips and cleaned it out. So it's this is ready for lighting. On the landing bays, I added in flooring to the bottom section, so it's when you do look in, you won't just be looking at kind of a hollow base. And we might try to add some more detail on this as we go along. I've been adding in a lot of detail to the body of it. It's in no way canon or anything. Like I said, I'm not trying to replicate the Galactica. I'm just kind of making my own Battlestar. There's a lot of areas on here that are very plain, so I'm just throwing in. I think once I get the primer on, all this will blend in and it'll just look like detail. Right now it kind of sticks out because of the color difference. So that's where I'm at. Just working on adding in some detail to the kit right now, and I'll just keep on going. Alright, well, I put a coat of primer on, and I think the added detail is blended in quite nicely. In some places, kind of hard to tell what was part of the kit and what was added. And so I'm pretty pleased with the way that turned out. All primed up. I've also did a gloss white coat on the inside here. When we run the lighting in here, I'm going to do some strip lighting that runs through here, and then we'll cut some holes and fill it with some fiber optic wire to bring out the windows. So for light blocking and then make it nice and bright inside there. Covered that. On the landing bays, I've worked on putting the light. This is the top part of the landing bay, and the lights are recessed. I'm trying out a little bit of this kind of chrome tape for light blocking. When you put a LED against plastic like that, even when you try to light block it, sometimes it'll still make a hot spot on the plastic. So put that in there. Plus it's reflective, so it'll help shine that light. And then I just made kind of a ceiling. There's very small openings. It's not that easy to look into. So when you do look into it, you'll see a bit of a roof line, if you can even see that much. But you shouldn't be able to see the lights that are recessed up out there. And that'll give us a nice red glow inside the landing bay. And you'll be able to see all the way through the middle of the landing bay. So I'm just working on that, and that's where we're at. Alright, I've added in some little bits of sprue that I just cut off in about 1/2 inch lengths, and I'm going to take my LED tape here. I have the wires soldered onto it, tested, make sure it's working, and I'm going to run this around much like I did my Asbestos Star Destroyer. I'm going to have this lighting on the inside, and I'll illuminate the inside. Then we can seal it all together, paint it, and we can drill out the holes, insert some fiber optics, and that'll illuminate our windows. Attached parts of the back on here, the engine section. I still have to do the lights. I'm going to try to do some blue flickering lights and a red flickering light for the middle section here. I'll probably have to block this off somewhere because it might get some bleed over. I don't want my windows to kind of be blue and red kind of in here, so I'll have to find a way to close that off. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that just yet. I'm also contemplating maybe running some fiber optics with some flashing red lights somewhere. I'll have to find some places on the model, kind of give it a little bit of life, kind of like some warning lights going off. I've sealed up my landing bays and just working. I'd cut away one section here. I was planning on doing more, but this wasn't turning out the way I like, so ended up kind of sealing that back up. Anyway, I've sealed them, and you can see where I'm sanding them, smoothing them down, getting rid of the seam lines. Quite a bit of seam line work right here where these two parts came together. I had to take some files and sanding sticks to get those. So we'll get all that done. So I'm going to attach this LED strip to the inside of this section here. Of course, we'll test it up. We're going to have to attach, I'll probably use this brass rod and attach it permanently to here. The connecting mounting hole, we'll probably drill that out. We'll attach this in, we'll fix it in place, and then we can run our power down and outside the model through the base. So that's where we're at. So here I have installed my strip lighting. As you can see, it's running on both sides. And it comes down and around here. I have some facing the front here, so I can light this bridge area. It comes all the way around, kind of ends here. I have it kind of glued in here. If I test it, it gets nice and bright inside there. And working on the engine lighting, and just finding a way, what I want to do is I want to have 4 different flickering blue LEDs, one for each of the main engines, so they'll all have their own kind of pulse rate and look individual. You could just do one for each set right here, and it would look fine. I just wanted that little bit extra detail in it. So what I'm going to do is, of course, I've cut it out. I took some just regular sheet clear styrene and took some abrasive sanding sticks and scuffed it all up to help diffuse the light, and that will cover up the engine nozzles. And then I'm just making some little boxes to separate the lights, and there's a blue flickering LED, and that's a 3mm. You could use bigger if you wanted. And this will back up into the engine right here, and that'll separate. We'll put a cover on it once we get it nice and done. I've already checked it. I'm pretty pleased with the way the light, it's pretty diffused. There's not really a hot spot from the light. I think the box kind of contributes to that, helps bounce that light around a little bit. So I have to make another one of these boxes for this side, and then we have to make something to separate the red flickering light for that engine right there. So that's where we're at. Alright, well, testing our engine lights here. We have 3mm blue flickering lights in the 4 sections of the main engines, and then I just went with a solid red. I tried a flickering red LED in here, and it was just coming out a little pink in the light, so I just went with a solid red LED. Obviously we need to trim these lines down. This is just for a test, but we'll trim all these down and connect them into one line to connect with the main power source. That'll be somewhere in here, I think. So, but looking good. I still have to put a cover on this. I'll probably, and messing around with different things, I'll probably cover this up solid, or I may just take some, not this, but some aluminum foil and use that to kind of light block all the top, because that's also would be very reflective and help brighten it up inside there. So hadn't decided on that. So that's where we're at with the engine lighting. Let's see if you can get a quick view, kind of what it looks like. Pretty happy with that result. And we'll just keep moving forward. Alright, so here we have our engines all going. Very happy with how that's turned out. Just take a look. I did go for the aluminum foil, and I just put a little super glue around the frame and then press the aluminum foil into position there. And then you can see the wiring where I now condensed it down. So pretty pleased with how that's turned out. I might have to do a little bit more light blocking. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think we're blocking enough of it that it's not going to cause blue light to seep into the windows once we light those up. But I may come back with some black craft paint and cover over these areas where a little bit of blue is coming out. Alright, so I've attached the bottom of the ship to our base here, and it's just connected through here. You can see where I have my power line going up through this brass rod here, and it comes out here. Now, if you can, I don't know if you can tell, but I built this up a little bit with some extra styrene, so it'd be fairly thick part that the brass rod would be surrounded by. And I took some of this Gorilla epoxy. This is the kind that sets in 5 minutes. And you just kind of squirt that out, mix it together, and then you got a few minutes to work with it. But I put that all in here, all around there, so it seems to have a good hold on the ship here. If I do need to adjust it, you know, the good thing about brass is that it can bend back and forward. Once I get everything on there, it might shift a little bit on the weight. You can tell why I've condensed some of the lighting. I've added in a flashing light that points downward on the bottom of the ship. You can see where I've kind of light blocked that with some black paint. And it was just hot glued, and then I put the black paint around it. And I have the lights from the landing bays coming in, but I did have a problem. As you can see, I've already cut some of the wires. For some reason, this landing bay was not lighting up as bright as it was. This one was lighting fine. So how I'm going to correct it is I still have to put the top on, and it's left me with some channels here, and I'm just going to, like I did right here, I drilled a hole directly into it, and I'm going to insert some different lights. I'm guessing that some kind of short happened when I connected it. I can tell that they're on, they're just not bright. So I don't know what's going on, but at this point, everything's sealed up, and yeah, just there's no way to really get to it without breaking everything apart. So my best option is to just kind of drill in here and here, and I'll insert some red LEDs there. And then once we take the top part, that will cover up those wires. So hopefully that will suffice. And just to show you on the top section, I have some flashing LED with some fiber optics, and we'll have some little flashing warning lights on the top here. This stuff I've added, and again, the ship's not decaying in any means, just having fun with it, doing some lighting effects. So, getting close. I'm going to attach all those wires, and then it's going to be quite the chore to get this all situated down on there. I'll probably do it in sections, getting it glued in, and work my way up. And from there, we have some trim pieces to add on to the front of the ship, behind here. And I'm sure we're going to have some light leaks, so we'll have to address all those. So when I come back, hopefully we'll be at the part where we have that top fastened onto the bottom section here. Hey guys, I thought I'd show you, about to seal it all up. Before I do that, I have it powered. It's coming from an outside power source. This is a 12 volt plug-in source that runs LED strips. So that's coming up. Everything's working. The landing bay is looking much better now that I've attached these other red LEDs. It's a lot brighter than it was. So I'm going to let it run for a little bit and make sure we don't get any shorts, because I'm getting to the point where once I seal it up, it'd be really hard to get back to all this stuff. I really admire the guys who are like super neat with their wiring and stuff. This is actually less messy than I normally am, so I'm somewhat proud of my wiring here, even though it is still a bit of a hodgepodge there. Anyway, so I'm going to let this run for a little while, make sure we don't have any quick shorts, and then I'll work on getting it sealed back up. All right, have it all sealed up and primed now. It was quite the chore to get it sealed up, and then there was a lot of effort going into light leaks, filling up all the light leaks. Right in here, I had to add in some pieces of styrene on the pylons here to the landing bays. There were some huge gaps, too much for putty, so I actually put in some strips of styrene and some other parts to just kind of detail it out. Had some other huge gaps underneath here, right where the two pieces came together. Was quite an ordeal to get that sealed up. And I mostly used super glue just to kind of fill in the gaps, and then I'd prime over it and see what light was leaking out. Have almost all of that taken care of now. I do have one issue that's popped up. I had these little warning lights going up here. One of them's not blinking anymore. The light's working because they both run off the same light. I'm guessing that when I connected the two parts, it pulled the fiber optic out of the light source because it's no longer blinking. So that kind of stinks, but it's sealed and it's just not worth trying to break it apart at this point. One's still working. The one underneath still blinking. The engine lights are going, looking good. The landing bay lights are on. They're not super bright, but when you look in it, you do see like a red light that illuminates the inside. We obviously still have to do all the windows and stuff, but we're going to move on to painting now. Debating on how I'm going to paint it, what colors. So I'm not going to say anything right at the moment. I'm going to experiment with some stuff, see what just kind of works best for me or what I like the best. Again, this is not trying to be screen accurate to the Galactica. I probably won't even name it that. And but moving on to painting now. And but I think it's looking good with the primer coat on, and it's starting to look come to life, and the extra detail I think added a whole lot to this model. All right, well, here is the base coat that I decided to go on, and it's just a mixture of paint that I made myself. Came out a little bit lighter than what came out in the bottle, and this is just some acrylic craft paint that you buy. It was a couple different colors, some whites, some grays, mixed in with some acrylic thinner, and again, it came out, as you can tell, well, looks pretty even on there, but in the bottle it actually looks a little bit darker. But I'm pretty happy with it. It reminds me a whole lot of the original series and kind of the white color of that. So from here, what I'm going to do is, and I just sprayed that on with my airbrush in a couple of different coats. Went on nicely. It leveled out really nice, so I'm pretty pleased with all that. From here, I'm going to put on some clear coats, some gloss clear coats, and I'm going to try to apply the decals that were supplied. They're old, a little bit weathered. We'll just see how it turns out. I heard of where you can put these out in the sun, and I'll get rid of some of the yellowing. So I may try to do that, see if we can lighten this up a little bit. But I think it's mostly just the paper that's yellow. The decals, it's hard to tell. Probably going to go with the Triton as the name, because I've done so much modifications, it really doesn't resemble the Galactica. So, but we have a lot of different options here as far as names. I really like Triton. I think that's pretty cool name. So I'm going to put on the gloss coat and put the decals on, and then we'll come back once that's finished. All right, as you can see, I have it masked up here. I tried putting on the decals, and they didn't go on very well. They didn't look good. They weren't setting very well, so I ended up just pulling them all off. And I'm just going to do my own paint scheme with some little different colors, probably a little darker red, more like the newer series, and do some other stuff. Like I said, I'm not trying to replicate the Galactica here. Just trying to have fun with it, and try to use decals. Like I said, just didn't work out, so I'm going to do some painting here, and we may try to weather it up a little bit after that. All right, I'm pretty pleased with how my detailed painting came out. You probably noticed I've added a little decal here, the skull and crossbones. Again, not trying to replicate the Galactica, just trying to have fun with it at this point. So I decided I'm going to add some washes in to help bring out some of the detail in here. Some very light washes. I'm going to try with some grays. We might step up into some very diluted black wash. Just depends on how the grays come out. But I just want to bring out some of those details and go from there. So we're getting close to being finished. I'm going to do that. I still have to drill out the holes for the windows. I drill those out. I add in a little bit of fiber optic to close them up and bring out the light. And so I'll do that on the different ones. So I think I'm going to go ahead and finish it up from here, and when I come back we should be done. Alright, well here is our finished model, our Monogram Battlestar. Again, I named it the Triton. That was one of the name options it gave you for the models. And the reason I did that, as I said before, is I just added in a lot of detail. I did the paint scheme that was a little different. I didn't really try to follow what I saw from the Galactica. Just kind of did my own thing with the painting, the lighting, the added detail. This model is not very accurate to what you see on TV. Obviously, if you want a more accurate model, it's probably better off going with the Mobius version. It's newer, probably fits a lot better, which, you know, one of the things about this is this terrible fit, especially connecting your landing bays to these pylons here. I had some huge gaps that I had to kind of fill in, had a huge gap back here. One of the issues that came up is one of my blinking lights no longer worked. I think what happened is that I was looking at a picture of the inside of the model before I sealed it, and the cable came really close to an area where there was a large gap, and I put quite a bit of super glue to kind of fill that gap in there, along with some styrene. I think some super glue got on the fiber optic, and super glue tends to melt fiber optics. So I think that's what happened there. So, but overall, it still was a lot of fun. I did all the lighting, added in, as you can see, all the different lights here. Pretty pleased with how these came out. Did the same methods I did with my Zvezda Star Destroyer. Just drilled out the holes and took little segments of fiber optic. In this case, I used 0.75 millimeter fiber optics and just glued them into position. So all that light's inside, and that kind of brings it out and gives you a nice looking windows. And I did that all throughout around the body. The actual studio model actually doesn't look like it has as much lighting as what I put, but again, I was just having fun with this, with the paint and everything, and at the end I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. I think with all the lighting, we have the engines going. Really pleased with all that came out. The landing bays are lit, but they're not over. It's hard to tell unless you kind of look in there to see the red lights in there. And that's about all I have to say. I guess the base itself is this one of these wooden plaques, painted gray. There was a trading card that was included with the kit, is I believe one of Ralph McQuarrie's concept drawings of a Viper. And I just glued that in position, and I poured resin over all that. I have a little bit of a separation right here, and probably need to put another coat of resin on there to try to cover up this little seam right here. But I'm out of resin for now, so I'll just have to go like that for now. And it's just powered by 12-volt system, plug-in system. I found that when you run those strip lights, that 12 volts is the best way to go to get them nice and bright. But it also works well with the pre-wired LEDs that I used for the engine lights and the landing bay lights. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the project. Until next time, everybody have a good one.